Norma. Thank you so much for joining us in conversation today. I cannot express to you the joy that is bursting from my heart to be in conversation with you. This conversation that we very much see as opening a portal for our youth defense community to draw closer to your teachings about how we move in times of crisis. So I cannot express how much of an honor it is to be in space with you today. And for me personally, just to sit at your feet and learn. So thank you for being here with us. And thank you for your willingness to offer our community a sending, if you will, on what we can hold as we figure out how and where we go from here with all that we're learning together as a community, especially at our national gathering that we call Summit. So thank you, Norma, for being here today with us.
Well, thank you so much for asking. I am very glad to be part of this recording, and I am sorry that I wasn't able to do it in person. You know, the work that you and all of the folks who are gathered are doing is essential.
So, Norma, to kind of kick off, we have been exploring as a community this idea of wholeness in our identities. And I love what you share in your book about this idea of relational orientation. And that begins with this picture of a lens. So I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about what lens means and why it's important, but also if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your personal lens so that we can begin to orient our listening with you in this conversation.
Sure. So here's what I mean by lens. In the same way that you have a camera, right, which has a lens on it, or you are wearing eyeglasses. I wear eyeglasses too
Mhm.
when for distance, but not for reading, right? If I did not wear my eyeglasses for distance, then everything would be a little fuzzy. If I never had glasses and I didn't know what glasses were, I would think that fuzziness about things that are in the distance is reality,
Mhm.
right? That's what I would believe that that's the case. So that is what I mean by lens. It's that whatever it is that you are seeing, you believe to be the truth, and you believe that to be the only thing that is reality.
Mhm.
That's what a lens is. So we tend to think of lens or the thing that brings in sharp focus, right? So, right, we adjust the lens of the camera. We have to get a new pair of eyeglasses, things like that. If you've been wearing your eyeglasses for a long time, then as your eyesight changes, you won't notice the difference as much. And you may go for a long time believing that what you see is how things are. And that is, that's the proximate impact of what lens is. Okay, proximate impact of that. We draw our lens from where it is we grew up in the country. You know, I grew up in the islands. I have a very island-centric perspective about things. I know that if I go to the local diner and I sit in one of the booths and I am talking with the person who came with me and we talk loud, we may be saying things that the person in the next booth may pick up, not only because they're in the next booth, but because they may be related to the people that we're talking about because we live on an island. And in an island, even if we're an island with over 1 million people, people are in relatively close relationship with each other, right? So that's a lens that I have from the experience of where it is that I live, my ways of living, my culture of living, and I bring that lens wherever I go. So when I go to the continent, which is what we call the US mainland, when I go to the continent, I am always amazed at how people do not take into account relationships that they have or that they may have and lean into that because I have the lens of an island person, of a person who has perhaps a more original form of community by my geography, right? By my geography. So right now we have many lenses that are in operation within the country by virtue not only of their circumstances and their geography and their class and their various intersections of various identities, but also how they are in relationship to all of the changes that are occurring, right? What is their what is their settling or unsettling as a result of that? And if we are doing the work, such as the work that you are doing, all of you are doing, with as in the defenders and companions of young people, you are in relationship to their lens, their experiences, but also the experiences of the worlds that they're in that have found fault with them, right? And to understand all of that requires you to be able to transcend your own perspective, right? And you're asking other people to transcend their perspectives and place them in that, and you're even asking that of the young people. Because if they are to move forward, they actually need activation into how to navigate a world that is not only about what they see in the world. Circumstances have made that necessary. And so you are accompanying them in an accelerated learning around that. And not only one of survival, I would hope, but one of coming through in a better place on the other side.
Youth defenders have the difficult task of needing to cultivate that very relationship in a very fraught um, situation, right? In a place where time is scarce, there's a lot of pressure just because of the ways and the mechanics of the court system. And where there's a little bit, or maybe a lot of it, of systemic mistrust between communities and the public defense institution as so I guess I want to lean into what you were talking about, this idea of relationships, and wondering what guidance you could offer youth defenders who are tasked with and very much need to build and cultivate relationships, um, really for our beyond a human, like of course on a human level, but also on a legal and ethical duty level. This is what we must do. But how do we do that well, especially in the context that we are dealt with in the system?
Well, the good news for some and the bad news for others, okay, will be that it is really going to be about how you develop your own humanity.
Mm,
Okay?
mm, mhm. Wow.
And so for some people, that would be very promising. And for
Mm.
other people, that would be, okay, that's a minefield,
Right.
right?
Where do you begin and where do you end with that?
Okay.
Yes.
right? And so a relationship,
Mhm.
if it is just transactional,
Mhm. Mhm.
will uh, not give you the full picture
Mhm.
and will not open up the full possibility. And sometimes that's all that can happen, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Sometimes it's all that can happen because relationship counts on the humanity of the various peoples who are going to be in relationship
Mhm.
to open up to each other. Okay. And as you say, right, the inherent mistrust of systems and that are well founded,
Right.
right,
First.
by the experience of peoples over long periods of time,
Right. Right.
that even before that child was born. So
Mhm.
therefore will transfer from generation to generation.
Mhm. Mhm.
The question is, in the instant of one relationship, will that be interrupted?
Mhm. Wow.
Okay?
Mhm.
So, from the perspective of my my practice ways, right, which are both indigenous and within the Zen practice, that um, that's why the word transform is a real thing, not a concept,
Mhm.
right? Okay.
Mhm.
And so we could use that word, but if we use that word and we're only transactional
Mhm.
about our relationship, then we don't untap the the energy and possibility because for true courage to show up,
Mhm.
it has to have an energetic quality to it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. You can't on paper have courage.
Mhm.
That's not a thing.
Mhm.
It's there. You can. It's a felt sense. It arrives even in the face of fear. If you it did not arrive in the face of fear, it could not be called courage.
Mhm.
Okay. So the vast intangibles, right, is would have to be brought to bear, especially in the most extreme situations,
Mhm.
because if you just drew all the dots around all the facts, okay, it would be insufficient, right? Okay. So if relationship at its depth is not possible, if it's only transactional,
Mhm.
then let us at least treat each other as human beings, not
Mhm.
as things,
Mhm. Mhm. Right.
right? Take the time, even if that time is just a minute.
Mhm.
So there's a difference if I just have a minute and I am only with you, or if I have a minute and as I am speaking with you, I'm thinking about the next thing
Mhm.
I'm going to do
Mhm.
and the last thing I did
Mhm.
and what I want out of this conversation.
Mhm.
Okay? If I did those things as I only have this 1 minute, then you'll have the time, but you won't have the actual relationship, right? It'll be shallow. Okay? Right? Okay. It is possible for strangers, entire strangers, within a very short period of time to become closely bonded.
Mhm.
Stories of that occur all the time. And they mostly occur in hard circumstances,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
In the middle of a storm, of a natural disaster of some kind.
Mhm.
Okay? Getting
Mhm.
out of a fire,
Right.
right? Okay.
Right.
So when a person is in deep grief,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It mostly happens in hard times versus in, you know, nobody's paying attention and we're all just at the movies.
Right.
Okay?
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? Okay. So it's a gathering of the superpower that everyone has
Mm.
to meet another person, human to human.
Yeah.
Right? The Hawaiian word for belly button is called piko,
Mm. Mhm.
Piko, right?
Mhm.
And so we say, can we meet someone piko a piko, belly button to belly
Mm.
button,
Mm.
alo ahe alo, face to face, right?
Mm.
Okay?
Mhm.
But without the belly button meeting,
Mhm.
meaning, right, the part that's not about our intellect,
Right.
okay, then how can we meet each other face to face?
What are the things that I need to be doing internally to make sure that I'm showing up in a way that is belly button to belly button, to develop and cultivate that relationship?
Well, I'm sure that all of your folks within this community of defenders that uh, you have tight deadlines, that you are under a lot of pressure. Um, there's that the part of who it is that you are defending, what the stakes are, right? What the stakes of that are, and that likely you're in situations where resources aren't great, and all of those things, right? Okay, so stress levels are probably pretty high,
Mm.
right? Okay. Uh, you can't compartmentalize stress. So the question has to do with how are people uh, like managing the capacity of their humanity,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
which I would say is more useful than managing stress.
Mm. Mhm.
Okay. So to manage the capacity of my humanity, I have to have openness in my day, even if my day is going to be packed with things, which means that in the few moments where I am not going to be doing things, I need to not habitually fill it with this and that,
Mm.
right? We have become unaccustomed to moments in which there is nothing happening,
Mm.
okay? Uh, Technology has played a part in that, and culture has played a part in that. And then the times, of course, reinforce that, right? Uh, so, and the what we're literally doing is we are sapping our capacity to be able to empty out
Mm. Mhm.
and to fill up, right? We just keep an overfilled state
Right.
of things, and then using our will, right, to keep going.
Mm. Mhm.
And none of that is useful. It is the same kind of stuff that would place a young person you're defending into a circumstance where they felt that there was only one thing to do, and that thing was something that society was opposed to.
Mm.
Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? So having space opens up our literally our ability to have more choices.
Mm.
Okay, so it is good for strategy as much as it is for our humanity.
Mm.
Okay,
Mhm.
when we're like boxed ourselves into our amygdala, okay, our fight or flight reflex, right? The prefrontal cortex goes dark. There's science now to back that up. Okay. And we could do that. We can be at the edge of that when we say, well, we're not angry. What are you talking about? We can be at the edge of that because we have essentially cluttered ourselves with too many things. And as we clutter it, we are our choices narrow. Okay? All right. So you have to create and cultivate the possibility of your humanity, which is a natural thing. Okay. So if you want to see a human at their full humanity, just see a baby, and you'll see two humans at their full humanity, the baby and you. Okay. Right? Because you will be drawn into just the energy and the way of being of that baby. And that unlocks a memory of that beingness. And for even just for a part of a minute, right? Might be you're in a bus and you look out the window and there's a toddler, there's a baby, and that part of a minute, right? Everything in you will soften, okay? Before it hardens again, okay? So, a thing you have to understand is that we know how to harden, we have forgotten how to soften. So, remembering how to soften does not mean you will, in any way, forget how to have your defense up around things, okay? And in fact, it should increase your senses, okay? Literally, all of your physical senses. When you're more open, uh, even someone who is now in New York would understand uh, that a tree, right, offers a different possibility when you're in the presence of a tree, right? Which is to say, right, humanity and nature are one and the same. And if you are in a more natural state, right, then you are freer to go outside of your current circumstance and to do more, right? Okay. So cultivating that, not on a periodic basis, but on a daily basis. Okay. I say, well, how are you going to find the time? Well, it only takes a few breaths to return to yourself if you practice conscious breathing every day. Okay. If you don't know what it is to breathe slower than how you're currently breathing, then when you're in a pinch, it won't be available to you. Okay. So, although I would hope someday for the meditation revolution, I'm a practical person. I know that's not going to happen anytime soon. But even re regulating the rhythm of your breath, right, for 5 minutes, okay, shifts out your biochemistry, makes it possible for you to enter the conscious space of being more human. Okay.
Thank you so much, Norma, for sharing all of that. Even as I was listening to you speak, um, I I took the cues of like the of breathing slower and of feeling what it means to be embracing my softness, you know. Um, and I think of in other places this concept of like mind body connection a little bit more in terms of leaning into our humanity by practicing being present in the moment, and breathing slower and leaning in softer as well. So I really appreciate you sharing all of that, and teaching us some of these practices that we can grow from. Um, and and I, of course, as I'm holding all of that, I am also thinking about this very moment that we're in our world right now. Um, and um, I think, as you say in your book, you say that we are at a time where our newsfeed delivers more data of our near infinite capacity for inhumanity, right? Our earth is hurting and people are systematically dying in Gaza and Sudan and in other places. And in our place that we call our country, there are heightened attacks uh, against so many communities that are happening seemingly at the same time, right? There's I'm thinking of the immigrant community, thinking of the transgender community, people of color, people with disabilities, and young people. And of course, as youth defenders, because the systems of control and punishment also intentionally target those very communities. In a sense, we are on the front lines of meeting the hurt and the pain of this moment in our country, um, and at this juncture that we're in right now. So I am wondering if you could share some wisdom about what this moment, what you see in this moment. Like, what are the possibilities and the pathways that you see for youth defenders to navigate as we hold on to an internal practice of coming to our humanity? What are some of the external things that we can be doing to navigate this larger moment that we're in?
You're asking everyone to hold on to their humanity, right?
Mm, mm-hmm,
As a that's a thing. You're
mm,
asking everyone to give humanity a chance
mm,
to stand in this particularly fraught moment, right?
yeah, yeah,
So if you look at the various cases that are making their way through,
yeah,
I would say that thematically,
mm-hmm,
it's when those attributes line up,
mm,
right? Not as a countervailing force to the law, but
mm-hmm,
in relationship to the law.
mm,
That is when fairly heroic decisions are brought down from the bench.
mm,
Okay,
mm, mm,
right. So um, the the aspects of all of this is isolation.
mm,
Is like the isolation is how it is that you um, make it possible for people to be disappeared and to fall into despair, to be separated
yeah,
from their humanity and the humanity of other people, right?
mm,
So it's like that's how relationship is connected to this particular moment. It's
yeah,
both an antidote as well as strategy,
mm,
as well as uh, the underpinning of a whatever's going to be the next commons and governance that will stand
mm,
in this country,
mm,
okay? Which is going to take a lot of time to come to that place. Okay, but the essential building block is is whether people see possibilities in each other
Mm,
and stand with each other into
mm,
that so that they're not isolated. Okay?
yeah,
Right. So um, now the rapid nature of of the work would mean that this has to be about the many rather than the few.
mhm, right,
All right. Okay.
right,
Right. And that our lines will be stretched thin,
mhm,
right, in terms of how we do it.
mhm,
And so therefore, we also have to figure out how to do it with each other and not to do it as individual defenders.
mhm,
Okay. All right. And so that's the only way that you're going to be able uh, to not only meet this particular moment,
yeah,
but to uh, right to come out on the other side and to keep going.
yeah,
Okay,
mhm,
right. There's a certain amount of stamina that would be required, and so we need to be in shape for that.
mm,
I mean, literally in literal shape.
mhm,
Okay. So if you are a youth defender and uh, but you're um, have just spent too many hours in front of a screen in doing this, okay, uh, then you will burn out pretty quickly,
right,
right? Okay, and we can't allow for churn among the among the warriors that we have,
mm,
and so therefore we have to cultivate, right,
mhm,
the the systems as well as the work necessary uh, to have the stamina, right, to keep going. And you cannot just use your will
mhm,
to do that, right? But clearly, isolation is um, the friend of the people who wish to stamp out
mm,
people of other identities, okay, or are trying to force a particular lens,
mhm,
okay, right? And so there are um, various ways in which it it is very important, right? It's like there are all the legal things you might be traversing,
yeah,
but how do you cultivate the like the removal of the isolation of the persons who are impacted by this
mhm,
on an ongoing basis? Whether it is something that is formal or informal in the system or not, right?
mhm,
And so there's a hacking that needs to occur. And as you bring
mm,
all means,
mhm,
farm partnerships with all possible peoples,
mm, mhm,
okay?
mhm,
Um, in uh, in places that are where systems fall apart, okay, or where there is very little system that has been counted on for a while. Uh, those are places that are actually getting through this moment better. That's my
mm,
observation. And here's why.
mm,
Because they have long had to figure it out on their own. They're not counting on a system.
mm, yeah,
They're not disappointed about a system.
mhm,
They
mhm,
don't know, they know long known that a system could be trusted or not. And so therefore they've had to come up with their own means,
right,
right? And so in a perverse way, that communities, the informal communities, are frequently much stronger than anything that you might put together within any system. Okay, right? So how do you bring all of that together? How do you hack it and to just make all of that possible centered around a child, right?
Mhm.
How do you do that? Okay. So it's it's like the old meme, it takes a village.
Mm.
Well, it takes a village irrespective of whether the child is prized or has been thrown away.
Mm. Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
You don't say it takes a system.
Mm. Mhm. Mm.
So the system may or may not be able to provide the village. Okay? And in most cases, it cannot. In the few instances that it is because the humans are engaged in it, think about what they do as being the um, the caretakers, right, of an involuntary refuge,
Mm.
right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so people involuntarily are here, but while they are here, this would
Mhm.
be a refuge.
Mm. Mhm.
And when that happens, okay, then you have a village.
Mm. Wow.
But can you compel that to occur? You can't compel that to occur any more than you can compel that to occur in civil society.
Mm.
So it is really all about the piecing together of specific humans.
Wow. Um, Norma, the image that was coming to my mind as you were describing this creation of a village, and I love what you said about caretaking in an involuntary refuge. And I receive a call from you to think of each human being responsible for connecting dots and building relationships, setting aside any binaries of your professional or personal life. You're just building and cultivating relationships. And you are then a caretaker inside a system, and in our case, a system that um, from the very beginning was designed to harm and to punish and to control. And we are offering refuge momentarily inside that system where young people are involuntarily brought in. And I am seeing an image of small connections and a constellation of people through relationships that create these informal villages just throughout for every single child. And that's completely dependent on each caretaker or each defender's cultivation of relationships that they are building with one another and beyond. Um,
Yes. So to be clear, right?
yeah. Mhm.
None of us can individually do it,
Right,
right?
right,
So
right, right.
therefore, right,
Yes.
you have to build the village.
Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. So, Norma, I was going to ask you to speak a little bit about this audacious goal that we have as a youth defense community to replace the very bones of this carceral system that was designed from the very beginning to harm, and whether you think or how you think we can do it as a youth defense community. And of course, knowing that we are playing just one little part in it, there is a beautiful community, a vast network of people who have been organizing to dismantle these systems for a very long time. But as we come to the hour, I just wanted to ask if you could share some words of guidance and wisdom in terms of how we move together. Like, how do we do this together within the youth defense community? to take on this very scary and complex goal of dismantling an institution that has been around for over a century.
So first of all systems, even the beneficial ones, are struggling right now.
Mm,
And so, and that struggle means that that they, in some cases, they will attempt to defend themselves,
mm,
right, in order to survive. But even that is going to be a like a stopgap measure, right? So in other words, systems failure is occurring across the board. So what takes its place that will be in service of the commons as well as individuals that will move towards more thriving,
yeah,
right? Which is different than saying we're going to um, produce a more humane incarceral system, right?
right,
That's right.
right.
Okay, so uh, I would say that we're anemic in that department. So
Mm,
we've mostly been trying to dismantle and to reform,
mhm,
but we're anemic in the department around the creation, whether it be small or the way I think about scale is putting many small things together
mm.
rather than changing the whole thing into another whole thing.
Yes, yes, I love that.
Okay. All
Hmm.
right. So the ideas and experimentation uh, uh, are what's called for. And for
Yeah.
that, you have to have conspirators.
Mm,
Okay. You have to
mhm,
have conspirators who are in places that are, going to um, um, put their desire and possibility and positional authorities behind, right, experiments, and then you have to stick to it. So you have to cross the boundary of advocacy into governance,
mm,
which is different than just being advocates for requiring government to do something.
wow.
Okay, so and that is one of the most difficult leaps that may be necessary. Okay, because we're used to um, righteously standing for something.
Mhm,
Okay, but if you want something to transform, you cannot assume that the people that you're righteously attempting to fight know how to do what it is you're requiring them to do. Okay. So even if they had the will, but remember they have a different lens. Okay. And so that's also why well-intentioned efforts go astray, is
yeah.
if right, you are requiring, right, entities that have different lenses to do things by your will,
Mhm,
right, versus their experience and creativity. Experience and creativity come from desire, okay?
mhm,
Not because an entity is required to do something.
mhm,
So even if you're requiring it to do something, and let's say you have the political power to do so, which in some places that still exists, okay, there's still the question of creativity and the bringing in ways that systems are not accustomed to. And so they have to sit on the inside outside, right? You can't have a hard boundary between the two. In other words, you have to build a village, right? So that part of like where we go to is very similar to what we need to do to be better in the current moment.
Wow. Norma, so I'm so sad that we have to wrap up, but I am um, so grateful for your teachings and your wisdom in how we move um, as a youth defense community and showing us that it is it is in our power to be able to move, to transform. And we do it by being in right relationship with ourselves, with each other, and with humanity. So thank you again and again for your teachings and your wisdom that you're offering our community.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time we have together, and I hope someday we'll meet in person.